everyone on another episode of Awaz-e-Haqiqat, which translates to the voice of truth. I am your host, Chris Malika Bhadra, and today or tonight, depending on whichever part of the world you're listening to me from, I'm going to be talking about homophobia and how most of South Asian parents perceive it. Have our parents opened up to it? Is there a phobia related to that? Why is that phobia? Where is that phobia stemming up from? A lot of other things. And I'm joined by a very prolific guest this evening for me, afternoon for her, because she's joining me from India. Sunita Noronha is a postgraduate in science who manages the admin and account section for her husband's logistics company and also moonlights as a singer. Sunita is passionate about equality and justice. Bridging the generation gap and lifelong learning is what she believes in. It's never too late to learn, quotes and quotes, has always been her mantra. Sunita is also involved in addressing civic issues with the local municipalities and also is very involved in animal welfare. Her sons, aged 27 and 20, have been instrumental in her letting go of her homophobia and other short-sighted prejudices and that her generation would want to propagate. One word, one religion, humanity is what she truly believes in. On that note, a very good afternoon, Sunita. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Chris, for having me on this podcast. It's amazing. And I would like to share a few of my insights with your audience. Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is always mine, Sunita. When I meet with people like yourself, so just my horizon just kind of broadens out everywhere. So thank you for being here. And thank you for agreeing to talk on such an important topic, first and foremost. Sunita, the first question that I have for you is, homosexuality is still a lot of South Asian parents are coming to terms with. So in that, to raise more awareness, how do we educate South Asian parents about this issue?
I think, Chris, we need to just encourage these all parents actually to be more open and to talk to their children more. It's this generation thing with us ki, what do these children know? We are older, we know more, we've seen life more. Do these people know? But I think that's a very big mistake that all of us parents make. I think we can learn so much from our children, be it about eradicating all these prejudices, be it about respect being a two-way street. It's like, okay, we are old, so you should respect us. But I think we should also respect the younger generation because it's a very, they can add a lot of value to our lives if we just open our minds more. So I would only suggest, encourage South Asian parents, in fact, all parents, to be honest, to just be more open and to treat your children like friends, especially when they are a lot older.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of leads us into the next segue of the conversation is, when you want to have that conversation with the parents, you've sat them on the table and you want to talk about that. How do you convince your South Asian parents who have like very high moral standards, who are very strict in their mindset, that homosexuality is something that you need to accept from your heart? It's not a disease. It's something somebody just feels. How do you convince your parents?
I mean, that is something I would say Herculean, Chris. It's like, unless you really, really open your mind, nothing or nobody can convince anybody for that matter that, you just need to feel, to be more empathetic towards the situation. Like, even though my son is straight, we used to have a lot of debates, just sitting down instead of looking at your phone or TV. We used to talk a lot. My son's always been a voracious reader. He's had friends, who have been gay or lesbian or whatever it is. And it didn't matter to him. I mean, that person's just a human. So we would just chat. And I would be like, homophobia, this homosexuality, it's like a disease. And, they have a wiring problem. These were my exact words. And I'm a science postgraduate. I would say it's not possible, man and woman are made to procreate and all this the stuff that we've been learning from the Bible, from the movies that we were
Yeah.
exposed to, where fun used to be made of these people. They used to be treated as some kind of caricatures,
Yeah.
and we used to be laughing at them. They used to be called gullu, and so much derogatory stuff going around that I started talking to him about this, and he just told me, he's saying, Mama, that person is a human. Why do you forget that? Whether that person is a boy or a girl, man or a woman, gay or lesbian, it doesn't matter. Why do you forget that that person is first of all human?
Mm.
That was one question which kind of, just opened everything for me. And I was like, yeah, why am I being this discriminatory witch? I said, that person is human. Also, when he was making his resume, when I said you've got to put, I was making his first resume for him. So I was, Jason, you've got to put your sex in there. You have to say your male. He's saying, no, I don't need to put it, because whether I'm a boy or a girl, a man or a woman, if I'm fit for the job, I'll get it.
Yeah.
That was another thing which said, wow, it's really come a long way since we were in that situation. So to answer your question, I would be, I think, just get into these casual debates. You'll find that there is a lot of insight that comes from your children. We older generation are at a loss because for us, a lot of stuff happened on blind faith. Our parents told us something, we didn't question it, and we carried on with it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, this Generation Z, as you would call it, they will question it, they will find answers for themselves, and they will give you the answers if you ask them the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. So
So
thank you for spelling it out, because I think a lot of people need to unlearn things and relearn
absolutely.
new things in the 21st century. And homosexuality is something that tops the list. School education, right, Sunita, for the newer generation. What is your opinion about schools if they are trying to educate young children about homosexuality? Should this be done in the school level?
If it can be done, I mean, why not? If it can be pulled off, that would be ideal, because your child spends so much of time in school, 6 to 8 hours on an average. But I've also found, be it your normal sex education, it's very loosely taken up in schools. They don't touch on a lot of topics. They do the basic stuff, the difference in the genitalia, and still you have people laughing, and you have a lot of giddy-headed stuff happening. So I don't know if it will work immediately, as we speak, but if it can be taken up in a more sensitive manner than the way sex education is being taken up now, why not? I mean, if there is some curriculum that can be worked out, keeping in mind, taking into account everybody's beliefs, and I think it would be fabulous if this could be done. But I think we're a long way from there, at least in India, personally speaking.
I remember when I was in year 9, we used to have this chapter called sexual reproduction, right? And that was used to be such a hush subtopic. Even the teachers used to kind of like, when am I going to get rid of this topic and be done? No extra questions in the class. But
absolutely. And there would be people giggling, and it's like as though it's something to be ashamed of, or I just, that's why I said, in schools, you've got to be very careful with what you put out there. But if it can be pulled off, I think amazing. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that needs to be also parallelly taught to the children is consent, because that kind of goes hand in glove with whether you're homosexual, heterosexual, whatever.
Absolutely. On that word consent, let me narrate a very, one of the main things that actually got me. It was my eureka moment, as you would say. I was talking to my son, and I was like, I said, what is all this happening nowadays? People are saying legalize the 377, do away with it, section 377 and all that. I said, tomorrow somebody will say, I want to have sex with a dog, so legalize that. I said, where does this stop? I was like going on and on, ranting and all. And my son was just patiently listening to me. And he said, Mama, if you're talking about having sex with a dog, he said, there is a section in the IPC which takes care of this. It's called bestiality. And I went and actually looked it up on the net.
Right.
And he said it's all taken care of in the IPC. And you're forgetting one very important word. It is consent. Did the dog say yes? He didn't. You're forcing yourself on the dog. So there is no consent. But if two consenting adults, whether it is male, 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 female, 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 they want to have sex, who are we to say no?
Absolutely.
Just like I have a right to choose my life partner and I chose my husband, Michael. If you want to choose your partner and you want to choose a woman, who am I to stop you? Why should I want to stop you? It's only love. This is another thing that, why people kick each other, they hate each other, you have war. All this is okay. But love is not. Why is it not? So this is consent. It's a very, very important word.
You've opened the Pandora's box, Sunita. I think we'll have to have multiple conversations because this is such a broad topic. We can't wrap it up under one. But moving on about homophobia, Sunita, I want to talk to you from the parents' perspective, right? Because I also often have heard my mom said, oh, when you become a mother, you will understand the kind of issues I have or the parents have, right? So when we talk about homophobia and the acceptance of homophobia, what are some of the fear, the stigmas, or maybe the shame factors that parents are scared of? What kind of, and does the society also play a role in harboring that shame in the parents?
I think that is the main issue, Chris. In India, we have something called log kya kahenge. What will people say? That is the thing that I think that is the reason why parents are most ashamed of accepting this. Even if they want to accept it, they are more concerned about, oh, what will people say? What will our neighbors say? I think that is, how do we get rid of that? Then I tell them ki logon ka kya hai? Logon ka kaam hai kehna. There's a song that goes that way. But I think this is more in India, I think we have this problem in India, which says, why do we need to bother about what people are saying? But then when you think of it from their perspective, it's also easier said than done. At least we in Bombay, we live in a very cosmopolitan society. But if you go towards the rural areas where you have superstition, where you have so many other taboos, where you have prejudices that are, drilled into you right from a very young age, I think it's very, very difficult to convince them to not bother about what people say. But the main thing is that, and also our own belief that, my son has to bring a daughter-in-law home. How can he bring a son-in-law home? That's another thing, we need to get rid of that stigma from our mind first, before we talk about other people. If you deal with it in your head and you're clear about it, okay, he's my son. He has the right to choose whoever he wants to choose, boy, girl, doesn't matter, and after that, once you have that sorted out in your head, then dealing with log kya kahenge becomes a little easier. But I still think we are a very, 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 very long way from there.
It's a parallel situation to, how some parents have that you can either become an engineer or a doctor. No other profession is acceptable. You have to choose either of them. Because again, log kya kahenge? Ki my son is not an engineer. And I'm like, the amount of pressure it puts on the child. I think I would encourage everyone to watch Kota Factory. It's a series on Netflix.
Absolutely. I have watched it. I binge watched that. I mean, what an eye-opener. Really.
It's toxic
pressure. My own son came and told me, like we were discussing careers and all. He came and told my husband and me, I want to be an actuary. And I was like, what? What did he do? He said, I want to be an actuary. I said, what even is that? So he's saying, Mama, let it be. You're old school. You'll only know doctor and engineer.
Yeah, I know. It's just so ingrained in us. And I would request everyone to go watch Kota Factory on Netflix.
Absolutely.
These conversations, Sunita, are obviously very difficult conversations to have, right? Imagine a household where the child wants to come out, but the parents are very morally strict. So both sets of the generation are undergoing their own mental trauma and mental struggles. So in
Yes.
such a situation, how does the whole family as a whole deal with their mental health?
Nowadays, Chris, there are lots of forums, there are lots of people whom you can approach. But the whole point here, again, before we come to that situation,
Mm.
is opening your own mind.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, if I can't open my mind, what is somebody else going to do? It's not going to uh, get anywhere if we are not going to bother about our own openness.
Yeah.
So but today there are a lot of forums, there are a lot of organizations doing fabulous work with such kind of, I'm sure you would know about a lot of organizations. And if you can put these out, on your forum to kind of reach out to these people or
Mm.
these organizations to help you, you know and I would suggest just be more casual about it. Don't, itna kuch nahi hai, it's not such a big deal that,
Mm.
it's like anybody, it's like any normal wedding or any normal relationship. Like today, if my son has a girlfriend, since we were brought up in a very strict environment where we were not allowed to use the word boy in our house, I mean, boyfriend to dur ki baat hai. But we had decided that as a family, we're going to be very open with our kids.
Mm.
And we encouraged our kids to come and tell us when you have a girlfriend. We don't want to hear about it from somebody else.
Right.
You come and tell us,
Mm.
So we always had that kind of environment. And my son, when he got his first girlfriend, he came and told us about it, although I discovered it by accident. But he was quite open about it. And he has this girlfriend whom he's going steady with now. She's like a member of my family, you
Mm.
know. So in the same way, tomorrow, if it were a guy instead of a girl, after I've had this conversation with my son, I would have treated that boy like any other person,
Mm.
like any other, like if he would have brought a girl home and said, this is my girlfriend, if he would have brought a boy home and said, this is my boyfriend, I would treat him like, okay, I mean, you're part of the family now. That's the way we would look at it. So I would encourage parents to kind of just, it's your child at the end of the day. What do you want for your child? You
Mm.
want your child to be happy, right? The bottom line is that you want happiness for your child. So if it is with a man, if it is with a woman, how does it matter?
But again,
So,
some people, if I have to be the devil's advocate for a while, right? Probably you
Mhm.
come from those elite families or those intellectually lifted families where we understand the nuances, where we want that the child is over the society. But as you mentioned earlier, that most of South Asia has certain rungs of the society where these kinds of conversations are just not had because they've never heard of it, it's not allowed, blah, blah, blah. Where do those children go then? Where do they seek refuge and solace? Because the household is a strict no-no, obviously. What happens to those kind of situations?
I would want for these children
Mm.
to, like I said, reach out,
Mm.
involve these organizations, seek help
Yeah.
from external sources, whether be it a family member who's more open,
Mm.
any uncle, auntie, sister, brother, friend, and get that person in and initiate these conversations, just initiate it on a very basic level. Probably your parents have not been exposed to this openness,
Mm.
you
Mm.
know. So if they can, I was not. I'm talking about personal experience.
Yeah.
My mind was totally closed. I was in a box, Chris, if you can call it that. Our religion tells us it's a sin.
Mm.
And Jason would keep telling me, oh, y'all Christians, y'all burnt these people at the stake. And he would accuse me of all kinds of things. And we would have these heated, arguments.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't think you should be ashamed about admitting that your son is right and you are wrong.
Mm.
It's about an argument. In an argument, one person wins and the other person loses. But
Mm.
I don't think you lose, you learn,
Yeah. Yeah.
So seek the help of a family member who's more open. Look
Mm.
out for these people,
Mm.
identify, and seek help.
Mm.
uh, One of the negative traits I would say about this generation is the know-it-all syndrome.
Yeah.
But I think if they can reach out and seek help, I think it would help a lot.
Yeah.
Just request somebody. There's no harm in it. You
Yeah.
can't do it on your own, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. There's no harm in asking for help.
Yeah.
Moving on, and it's on a similar line of having conversations, Sunita, that when we are at the dinner table with our children, with our parents, or even an intergenerational dinner table, right? Grandparents as well. What kind of conversations should we be having on that table?
I think any conversation, excepting work and work, religion, and politics. I think besides that, I think anything and everything, a movie that you watched, a conversation about your day. We have multiple pets. We're always fighting about who will take what pet and go. These kind of conversations, I think, keep it pleasant, keep it affable. Don't get into any controversial statements. If you want to get into controversial statements, leave it for after dinner.
Right.
And especially if it is, like you said, with people who are not able to get into this conversation, then don't get into it when you're around. Get into it when you have help. That would be my suggestion, my personal suggestion.
I'm wrapping up this conversation, Sunita, but again, by meaning wrapping up, I don't want to wrap up the topic because this topic is a multi-conversational topic. We need to be having periodic conversations about this, but somewhere we need to have a border where we need to kind of close one set of the conversation. On related to that, what would be your message to anybody who might be listening to us, Sunita?
My message would be something that I've been saying all along, Chris. Open your mind. The rest will follow.
Yeah.
That would be my only request. I have learned, and I have learned about opening my mind from my children, not from anywhere else, not from any TV serial, not from any movie, not from my parents. Open your mind, talk to your children. I think that would be it. Thank you,
Sunita. Very, very heartwarming, inspiring conversation. And to my listeners, this was Sunita Noronha joining me from India. And we talked about homophobia, which is not a disease. Please don't see that as a disease. If your child wants to come out and speak to you about being a gay, lesbian, or a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, please accept your child with your open heart, because they are your first sort of support they want to go to. If you don't accept them, where will your child go? Just think about that. And if you've heard me for a while, I really hope that you like the content that I put on the table. If you've got any thoughts or feedback, please write to me at awaz-e-haqiqat@gmail.com, or you can also find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And speaking of that, I forgot to ask Sunita. Sunita, if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can we find you on social media?
My Facebook page is Sunita Noronha. That's my name. And my Insta handle is snor2469. That's SNOR2469. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you, Sunita. Thank you so much for this conversation. I hope we can have many more of these in the future. Looking forward, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I hope whoever's listening to this conversation, it can help in some way. If any parent wants to reach out to me on a one-to-one, I'm absolutely open to it. If you know of any such parents who would like to reach out, if they would like to speak to my son, if they would like to speak to me, please, I would be only too happy to help. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.